This week, Cuba and Aaron attend a podcasting event. We give our thoughts on it, and we also give our advice for any aspiring podcasters. We also talk about Doctor Who. I'm a big fan of the 10th Doctor. Aaron hates the 12th Doctor. We cordially discuss. This is Modern Retro. Welcome back to Modern Retro. I'm singing the lonely song because it's just me in the basement. I mean, it's me in the dungeon, alone in the dungeon. I don't even have that devil of a cat that usually is annoying me at my feet today. So,
No, but you do have that Armenian kitchen backdrop.
You leave that kitchen alone. I mean, look at that. I mean, we gotta take like a screen grab of this and let the people decide because I don't. This doesn't look like an Armenian kitchen. I mean, look behind me. It looks like some sort of mad scientist lab with, like, style.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. You can't tell that this here, can't tell that's a fridge. It's just like, what's that ominous black box? And then, like, a bunch of red and green wires up behind me.
Yeah, the area that you're in right now, it looks like you're hiding from a murderer in a scary movie.
Yeah, so
That's what
anyways, like I said, this is Modern Retro. I am Cuba. I am joined across the vastness of the interwebs. Why? Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
Yeah, and I'm an alcoholic. Actually, I'm the only one drinking alcohol tonight, apparently. So,
Yep.
I mean, yep. Drink up, me heart is yo ho. Yeah, so our normal Roy Sif couldn't join us today. I don't remember what the excuse was, but we don't believe it either way. I'm kidding. I'm not even going to directly say I'm kidding to Roy because I know he's not going to listen to this. This is episode 18 of Modern Retro Podcast, by the way, and I think he's only listened to one out of the 18 episodes, so 17 that have been released, but, you know, this comes out in a couple days. I'm pretty sure he's only ever listened to one of them. So
We must not be cool enough.
Nah. You know, we're not Joe Rogan. You know, apparently,
That's right.
Joe Rogan's like the only special spot in his heart to listen to.
Well, his podcasts are like 3 hours long. You can't really... There's
And
only room for one Joe Rogan.
And you have to be really high to listen to Joe Rogan.
Eh,
I mean,
he's
especially
hit or
for the entire 3 hours.
yeah, definitely.
I've never sat through more than maybe 30 minutes of Joe Rogan.
It only depends
I
on
can watch his stand-up. His stand-up is funny, but like his podcast, it's like, wow, dude.
Well, it all depends on who he's talking to. Like, if he's talking to someone that's interesting, it's like a little mini documentary. If he's talking to someone who's just like another comedian or like a fight person, it's just like, skip, because it's just awful.
I'm sure Roy will disagree with you on talking to the
Perfect
MMA
example.
fighters.
Perfect example. Well, that's Roy's interest, so it interests him. But so one of his recent episodes was with Kevin Smith, and they were both too high to have a podcast, and the entire podcast was just them looking at YouTube videos. It was a really strange podcast. Like that's kind of a bummer. I mean,
I'm pretty sure we've done that in a
anecdotal-
previous incarnation of this podcast, didn't we?
Yeah,
Just
and
like,
it sucked.
And that's why we
So-
don't do that one anymore.
Exactly. So, I mean, I was kind of bummed because usually Kevin Smith, like I've watched all the An Evening with Kevin Smith DVDs, and he always has like cool stories, like anecdotal stories when the people ask him questions. So I was hoping for more of that, and this was just him getting weirded out at the weird shit that's on YouTube, and that was it.
Didn't Kevin Smith quit weed, or did he get back on it, or it was
no,
something
he's-
like that, right?
He's hardcore advocate for smoking.
I thought there was
I think you're thinking of Snoop
it
Dogg.
was like a few years ago. Like, remember he got really, really, really fat. No, he got lost weight, right? And then he got really, really fat, and it was because he said he quit weed, and then someone got him back into weed, and then he got fat again, and like got the munchies.
I don't know.
And now he's like slimmed down a little bit again.
As far as I know, he is super into weed, like totes it on every single podcast, but he's also doing the losing weight thing. So he's on
By
a
not
diet.
having weed?
No, he still
I
has
know
weed.
by having okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like weed's not like you smoke weed and you get fat from it. It's just like if you use the munchies as an excuse for being like 350 pounds, it's like, dude, that's weed's not your problem.
No, he used to be like hardcore against it, and then he realized like I forget who got him into it, but then he realized like holy shit, he could get so much done if he was smoking. So he like edits all his shit smoked
It
up.
was Seth Rogen, I think, when he did Zack and Miri did a porno. I think he had quit weed at that point, and then I think after that movie came out, he said Seth Rogen got him back into smoking. I'm pretty sure it was like
Maybe that was
something
it,
like
yeah.
that along those lines.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so like as far as I know, he does everything all smoked up.
And so does Joe Rogan most of the time too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So is that what this
Lives in California.
podcast needs to get like a big boost in listenership? Is we just need to smoke up? We need to do Roy's idea of just smoking and then talking for 3 or 4 hours about the meaning of life and the third eye and I don't know what the hell. He has that idea that he's wanted to do for years, and I'm like, fine, dude, go ahead. We'll start our own podcasting network, and you can do your own separate show as high as fuck as you want, talking about whatever you want. I'm not gonna listen to it or edit it, but you know.
I think if you don't really force yourself to start doing something when you smoke, you're not gonna do anything because it's just gonna be like, okay, let's start this. This thing's over here is distracting me, and you just like kind of just go in with whatever is in front of you.
I've told him to do it. Like I said, it's not anything I want to listen to, but if he wants to do it, I said, like, dude, that's fine. You can come here, you can come down to the dungeon, and you know, I'll be upstairs, and you do whatever the hell you need to do down here. There's a beer full of fridge. I mean, I don't have any weed on me. I was gonna say I don't have any weed in the house, but I do. But it's like it's not for me. It's for somebody, and we keep forgetting to give it to him.
Well, no, he would need like a guest or something to talk to go down the tangents.
Maybe I have a picture of a parrot over there. Like maybe I just prop that up, and he can think he's talking to that parrot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could have like an alternate modern retrocast where it's still you should have the second podcast with him, only have him be the moderator instead of you the moderator, and there you go.
No, but that'd just be such a mess.
Hey, it's his show.
We should actually try that sometime. I want to see where a Roy-led episode will go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like getting like a really nice, expensive, top quality sports car, and then just like putting a cinder block on the gas pedal and letting it go.
No,
you know it's gonna end off like falling off the ravine, but like, how's it gonna get to that ravine?
It's like watching an X-Files season, but in the middle there's that weird, strange one.
I found a great picture. So the three of us, like, we're constantly sending memes and pictures and videos all day and all night to each other. Like, it seriously doesn't even stop at night. I'll go to bed and I'll wake up the next day with like 3 or 4 messages of videos or pictures that I had missed while I was sleeping from one of you. But I found a good one today that I forgot to send, and it was like a picture of David Duchovny, like Agent Mulder, making like this like face. It was like a bunch of different sized faces upside down, spinning like all over the place around like this center one. And the caption was, when you ask her to send UFO pictures, but she sends nudes instead. And I'm like, that's a great one. That's a great one.
I don't remember seeing that one.
No, I didn't send it. I forgot to.
You bastard.
It was busy today. I'll send it later. Yeah, so we edumacated ourselves a little bit, you and I.
You should recap what this podcast is all about for any new listeners that may have gotten.
What is this podcast about? I was actually trying to think about that when I was introducing ourselves at the thing that we went to.
You were very unarticulate when it came to what our podcast was actually. I knew more about what our podcast was about.
I know what it's about. It's just like I need to like perfect the elevator pitch, because we are seriously all over the fucking place, especially this week, because it was a slow like news week. There isn't much to really talk about,
especially if you stay out of politics.
Yeah, well, this isn't a political podcast. So yeah, there was like a lot. I mean, not much happened, and I don't like doing an episode of reporting on like 20 little things of bullshit. I like getting like a good conversation going. So I mean, I think you went to the bar or the bathroom. You or maybe you were playing pool with somebody. So I did perfect it, like by like the last couple of people, I think. But I said, so our podcast is called Modern Retro, and I said, it's a geek pop culture conversation podcast. I bill it as drinks with your nerdy friends. That's what I ended on when that dude who drove like 2 hours to come to that thing.
Yep.
You were in the bathroom or something. I don't know where the hell you were, but that's
I think
how
I was over at the card table looking at cards.
yeah. So that's how I build it to that guy, and I'm like, that sounds good. I'll work on that and make that a variation of it. We went to it was a networking event for like a group. I'm assuming it's like a creative group in Newport. I don't remember what it was called, but so it's like a multi-step thing. I was on meetup.com looking for a business networking group for my business. Not podcast related, just so I can network with other businesses and creative people. So I found a South Shore graphic designer, like web developer, and like overall like creative professionals meetup. And I was like, oh, this is good, because all the good meetups are in Boston, and I'm like, I'm not driving to Boston or Cambridge or Brookline. Once a week.
Well, it was the same distance.
No. The one I found was strictly South Shore, so they meet up in like Rockland, Weymouth, in that area, someplace that's within 30 minutes of me. It's reasonable, but for their event calendar, they had this podcasting, like not quite a seminar, but like a kind of a Q&A with the 3 people who run successful podcasts. And I was like, it was in Newport, Rhode Island, and that is about an hour from where I live. I think it's about an hour from where you live, right? Ballpark? Yep. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, it was kind of a hike, but I'm like, hey, the reason we do this podcast is because we enjoy doing it and talking about the stuff that we talk about, and I'm narcissistic, so I love the sound of my voice. And
no one else does, Cuba.
Shut up. So I'm thinking, I'm more than willing to go and hear what a successful podcaster, far more successful than us, has to say about the topic. So I asked Aaron if he wanted to go. We're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go get our learn on. And we made the trek down there, and I was disappointed. It wasn't what I was hoping for. I mean, through it, like I wrote down a couple of notes for various like software that they had mentioned and stuff. So there is one that I'm going to buy that will just make the kind of post-production of this podcast a little easier, and doing interviews when we eventually line up some guests to do some interviews. It'll be easier for that. But for the most part, it wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't what I was hoping for.
Yeah, so the event itself was 3. Well, it started at 7, right, or 6. So
like the mingle started at 6, and then the speaker
from
started
6 to
about
7. It was at a bar, and it was what Cuba said, the mingle portion, where you're supposed to go around and talk to people. But it's in a bar, so people are having dinner. People are like having drinks. It's like, hey, what are you doing here? Like why are you here? It's like.
Well, the thing too is it's a networking group. So like, you always get new people into a networking group. That's what they want. But I wasn't there to network with like market brand strategists, whatever the hell. You know what I mean? It's like I'm just here to listen to the podcast people. So I only had 2 business cards on me too. I threw them on the card table. So
yeah, I mean this came across very, very corporate seminar. So. You walk in, and all the people that we seemed to talk to were just people that wanted to get into podcasting, not actual podcasters. And it's either the really old people that you shouldn't be podcasting, or if you do, it should definitely be about one particular topic that maybe you are just over zealous about, and maybe like who gives a shit? Pull the trigger, do your fucking podcast. It's not my thing, so I can't really tell you anything. And then you had like the younger crowd who was like, oh, like sort of how we came into the podcasting thing, like, okay, well, if we're going to do a podcast, let's, like, how we approach it. Do we segment it? Do we do this? Do we do that? And they hadn't started their podcast either because they got up in their own head about it too much. And everyone, I just wanted to say, just fucking do it. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's one thing that we left a little early. They're supposed to be done by like 8, but they kept going, and that's good when the speakers keep going, I guess. But we left at 8:30 because at that point it wasn't worth it. I hadn't heard anything that would like wanted to keep me there listening longer, and it was like I said, it was an hour drive home. So I'm like, let's get out of here. But yeah, I mean, every person that's one thing I wanted to hear from like the speakers. Like I'm not a master podcaster. Our podcast here is new. We have
apparently going to this meeting, we are master podcasters.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, like, our podcast here is new. We've been doing this for 4 years. We have some trial and error going on. I think the system we have here, which even to this moment, we're still perfecting this. It's never like this is the magic ingredient. This is how it's done. It's like, no, it's this is how it's working for now, and then I've read another way that might be better. Let's try that way, type of thing. It's kind of an evolving process all the time. But I felt like several times I just wanted to walk up on the stage and I wanted to answer the questions because I'm like, exactly. You guys are doing a terrible job of answering these questions. Like the lady was halfway decent. She was answering questions the way I would have been answering questions.
Yeah.
But the
other people, though, I mean, so the three, you have to explain, though, the 3 people that were up there. So you had the artsy fartsy chick who was really into horses. So she had like the craziest hair and the craziest like dress. You could definitely tell. I don't know. She was
a horse hippie.
She was, horse hippie. That's perfect. So her podcast was specifically about like maintaining horses in Newport, and New England does a lot of that shit. So it's very specific to a consumer or person who would want to download that from iTunes. You're coming up at the top of the list if people search for this shit. And you had the second guy who did a WordPress podcast, which is also, it's very fucking niche. Like,
yeah. I hate WordPress. I'm not a web developer, but I looked at WordPress and I go, nope, I can't use that shit.
Not even that, so the other 2 people, so one guy was WordPress, the third guy was Drupal, which is just another WordPress. And
WordPress I never even heard of.
Yeah.
And he was so bummed because everybody kept referring to WordPress, but not Drupal, and he kept making like frowny faces.
Hey, man, that's how niche that shit is. So one person actually did it because she loved doing whatever she was doing and was part of her hobby or whatever of horses. The other people were doing it as a marketing business thing to get like clients and speak to the corp or the that demographic of company people.
It's another marketing tool for their own businesses.
Yeah,
and that's where I was kind of disappointed in this because we're not. I mean, eventually we have steps where we want to hopefully make a little bit of revenue off of this podcast, but it's to keep the podcast itself going. Yeah. This podcast isn't for our business. We're not podcasters or radio personalities by trade. So that I wanted to hear someone more about what we do because we are strictly an entertainment podcast. Hell, I mean, I don't know if we're even entertaining. We're strictly a bullshitting podcast.
Basically, this came about is that Roy, Cuba, and I talk a lot at parties, and people say, hey, your conversations are very intriguing, and we like to listen to them, and they're usually pretty hilarious. So we're like, hey,
swear a lot.
Let's record that. And so that's how it kind of evolved over time. And we just were like, hey, want to come over and fucking record some nonsense?
And people like it, and we have we have our super fan Mike who listens, and we're so grateful for it, and he's helping spread the word, and we're growing, and what I enjoy out of this is just building our own little like community, a little community following of fans. And that's what we had with our last incarnation of this podcast. It just didn't take off because we didn't market well, and there was another podcast that was like well into like 500 episodes that had the same name.
Yeah.
Like we came up on page 10 of the Google search. So
yeah, it wasn't. So we didn't exist. We did not.
Yeah,
exist
exactly. Now we're on page 1. You type in Modern Retro or Modern Retro Podcast. We're on the first page.
Yay, we did
Google.
it. We made it.
Yeah, exactly. We're
millionaires.
Now it's just a numbers and time game where we keep doing it and we keep growing and we keep getting more people. So that's where we didn't relate to those first two guys. Yeah. We could relate more to the horse lady, but she had the advantage of being part of a podcasting network that she had already was working for, and that's like nationwide.
Also started from business, was also promotional for her business at one point, I thought.
Yeah. And,
so she spun off from an actual marketing, advertising podcast for a company and did her own thing and, brought people that way. But
yeah. So that's
been grizzled through the reality of the hard dark net of podcasts.
Exactly. There wasn't too much. I feel it could have been better organized by the people that put it on, because they had no set questions. I would have, because I heard the guy before we started goes, "Are there going to be are there hard questions?" And I go, "Oh no, we don't even have any questions." And he goes, "Oh, okay, good." I'm like, "Wait a minute, you organize this thing, you got these people to show up to speak for, let's say, 2 hours, and you don't even have a baseline of questioning for them. I know you want like a Q&A from the crowd to them. But
the chances of us ever hearing of you are slim to none. Besides basic shit, what are we supposed to do?
Right. That's why they introduced themselves, and then there was
silence for at least a minute.
Anybody have any? Yeah, and and everybody's just kind of looking at themselves, and finally somebody, I don't know what the question was.
Cuba looks at me and goes, "That was awkward."
It was, and I'm like, okay, so I see this is where this is gonna go, and so I'm listening to the questions being asked. I'm not gonna say that people's questions were dumb. They just weren't questions that helped me, that helped this podcast. It was just your WordPress thing, tell us more about it, or tell us how you started. It's okay, I get the tell us how you started thing, but I wanted to hear more technical thing. I wanted to hear more about equipment, software. They didn't do a really good, and finally, since nobody answered the question that I was there for, I asked them the question. I was like, all right, I'm in the beginning, so how did you grow your podcast and market it? That's what I want to know. How do you, that's one thing I can't find really good. Anything I do, I research a lot. I look into it. I read a lot about it. Just so I know. I think that's just kind of what any intelligent human being does, is you research your hobby, your topic, whatever. And I can't find I find generic stuff, how to get the biggest audience, and it's just everything says the same generic crap. I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, no pun intended, of the horse lady, how these regular people who aren't famous celebrities like Joe Rogan or Kevin Smith or Kevin Pereira, who have these massive podcasts that have, they inherently have a built-in audience of thousands because of their name, because of their celebrity. I wanted to hear how regular people built their audience and grew their group and marketed. And I just got such a shitty, piss poor answer from it. They're like, "Well, you got to keep doing it." I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking know that." It's it's specifics. It's somebody asked.
They could have just ended it with, "Our prayers will be with you."
Right, exactly. It's I send you my my hopes and prayers. It's
it does nothing for me.
Thanks for that. I'll put them in my fucking pocket and float to freedom. It's
yeah, the people that we did interact with, they were telling us their situation, like I said, and the reasons why they didn't start their podcast, or like coming up with stuff that they wanted to do, and like I just wanted to answer every question because we've been through all these scenarios.
We answered a good amount of questions. I'm like, I think there's this kid that we talked to. He came in and he's like, I just found this like an hour ago, and we're like, that's cool, and he just came right over to us and started talking to us. I don't know if it's like we're antisocial at these.
We were like the youngest people there.
We were.
Besides him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that. If we're just the youngest people at these, like, because this isn't the first marketing event that you and I have gone to, but like, I don't know if we're just antisocial, or I don't know, maybe we're just doing that cool thing where like it's like, oh, those two aren't talking to anybody. I want to go talk to them.
No, I mean, like, you looked at the other people at this event, and you'd think you'd see, like, a range of people. It was mostly the 40 crowd with, like, business casual on, and they were definitely there to either talk about how they could promote their business a little bit better, or they wanted to talk about their stamp collection or their coin collection, or that they go fishing. Like, it was very ungeared to our situation. So I mean, like, when people came up with questions, we're like, oh yeah, we did this, and like we're just shooting off ideas like, okay, you could do this, you could do that. I mean, you could call that person that you had a conversation with that set you on this trail, just interview her. You got content for your podcast. She's like, oh yeah. You know.
Yeah. Oh, just got a good luck gentleman from the Roy.
Fuck you.
Godspeed. Oh, that's mean. Oh, he sent a meme since he's not here. I'm not going to look at it. I don't want to be distracted by his memes. Yeah, so we did, 2 years ago, maybe? We did a similar thing, but it wasn't, we did like a speaking, I don't know if you want to plug it. Do you want to plug it?
That's a what?
The thing that we went to when we did a speaking for the podcast a couple years ago.
The Rhode Island Creative Monthly Magazine.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to plug it. Tell them to sponsor us now.
Well, they probably don't know we exist anymore because we changed names again.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
like we did a speaking there.
So we basically utilized all the friend connections that we had to promote this in some way, shape, or form, because it's creative. I know creative people. Some people who do their creative things were like, hey, like, you do this creative thing, let's, like, if you write up some kind of thing about what you're all about, we'll feature it in the this magazine. So I did the art, and like we wrote the thing, sent it off. We went to a speaking engagement where it was also other creative people who were affiliated with this magazine, and told them how we got our start and like what it is, where it's going, and apparently it's going into a new podcast.
Yes, we quit soon after that, and then started again.
Yeah, we've all. Our first podcast was fun, but the amount of shit we had to do for it.
We did it the hard way.
Yeah, we were looking at it the way these apparent old people who have like the savings and the money to do like just ridiculous shit. Like, that's how we started it. So we got like the soundboard, we got the mics, we got all the setup, and we gathered every time, and then it got to the point where, okay, promoting is a big fucking portion of, podcastery. So we'd go to cons, we printed up stickers, we'd talk to this magazine, and like we saw no growth, so we're like, fuck it.
Yeah, we saw no growth after 3 years. I guess this is without Roy. Apparently, this is the technical episode. So if anybody's thinking of starting a podcast, I guess this is the episode to listen to, because that's what we're talking about right now.
That's the name of this podcast, Starting a Podcast.
Episode 18, Starting a Podcast. So we had all this almost like studio grade equipment, but it was a lot of equipment, a lot of wires, and we like disassembled it every time and, and reassembled it, and it was such a pain in the ass. And then one thing, again, if I want to actually reach out and try to do some speaking engagements. That's one thing I took from this, is that I think we can actually inspire others with our experience here, because like I said, that taking that equipment apart and put it back together, it was a pain in the ass. Getting all together once a week, although it's great and fun to be able to get together with your best friends once a week, it's not easy to do all the time. And ordering 2 pizzas every time was getting expensive. No, and I like that part too, obviously. But life gets in the way, and then we just started missing too many episodes. Like, we want to be, you need to be consistent with this. And that's definitely one thing that we've learned, is that you gotta be consistent with it. You know, we didn't even try.
That was one takeaway from the thing.
What's that?
That was one takeaway from the speaking engagement.
Yeah, definitely. And
that was also like one thing that the other people who were looking to start podcasts were all about. Like, they were talking about, you know, if you have someone on, like, coming up with the questions that you're interviewing them with, and like keeping a conversation going. It's like, if you're like 45, man, if you don't know how to keep a conversation going at this point in your life, I think you're shit out of luck. And if you're having like a guest on, and you need to think of questions, I would think that you'd want to guess that you actually know questions that you would ask this person. Why are you having them on your podcast if you don't want to know what they have to say to you? You should have some questions going in.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you actually be a person because they're talking to you, and you just you talk to them. That's what you get. And this podcast is going to be exactly what we didn't hear at that fucking talk. This is exactly
it is. This is airing our grievances from what we were hoping to learn, but we didn't learn from.
You know, I mean, like, if especially if you're not talking to people who do podcasts and have specific questions, like they haven't started a podcast. They had questions about how basically they would want to start a podcast. This talk went very strangely, where it was like, okay, they have questions, they ask their question, the speakers talk back. It wasn't an engaging conversation of like, okay, well, you have this question, but what have you done to answer your own question? You know?
Yeah. One thing I thought was odd, and again, they're not professional speakers, nor are we, but one thing I would have asked if we were on stage, again, to engage the audience in the conversation, I would have asked, how many of you have a podcast? Mm-hmm. See a raise of hands.
The only thing they asked was how many people listen to podcasts, and that was the end of the question.
Exactly. It's like, it doesn't matter if you listen to podcasts. I mean, almost every fucking person listens to a goddamn podcast. No, it's like, I want to know, like, how many of you have a podcast? Show of hands. Okay. How many of you are here to, want to start a podcast? It's like, and then ask, are you here to learn, how to build your a currently existing podcast? And are you here to learn how to start a podcast? Because then that's going to dictate where this conversation is going to go.
Exactly. This was very like, we do this podcast, and then the questions just got so hyper focused. So you're just like, there's no actual information coming out of this unless you're in this business, like with WordPress.
Yeah, exactly. It kept coming back down to WordPress. Like, I went home, went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning. I went, I need WordPress.
He did his job, and his company proud.
Yeah, he did. I'm like, oh man, I need to find that guy with the beard for some WordPress. The horse lady, I wanted to hear more from her, because she was the one that had the closest to what we do. Yeah. But she actually didn't engage or talk much. She just kind of sat there looking all crazy.
Talking about horses. That's all she did. So,
she's like, I wanted a horse trailer.
You can rent one for $80. I came away with some information.
I know. It's like, I know exactly how much a brand new horse trailer is going to cost, and apparently you can finance it.
But what does that do for me?
Absolutely.
So
I did like how she was the only one that answered the Patreon question, which is something that I'm going to look into for this podcast. So that was good. It was a short answer, but at least it was answered, and I kind of got a little bit of idea for it. So I learned something, I guess. So
the thing that I got from it would be the Google Hangouts, or like the YouTube Lives, or whatever way that we could take this existing video of us in the weirdest, darkest, dankest places, and just throw it up on.
This
YouTube.
isn't dank. It's dank, but I mean it's well lit. I have my police interrogation light over there. It's like you look like you're fucking broadcasting from Osama's bunker.
That's because I don't like the light on. But I mean, if we put this on YouTube, I'd have to put the light on, so it looks like I'm in like a sound closet, like I am. Now it just looks like I've been kidnapped in Iraq. They're gonna lob off my head.
Please send the ransom money when they take another tow.
So that would be something that we could put on iTunes. I mean, not iTunes, but YouTube for content there, and then just rip the audio, throw it on iTunes.
Right, and that's one thing. Like I said, I took away. They mentioned a software that I'm definitely gonna buy, where it can record. It records both audio and video, and you can separate them. Because I don't want to do a live episode, not yet. But I got an idea from your insistence of doing the video. I'm thinking if we record the video, then we can just do little segments to put out on YouTube. You know, our funniest bits of the week or something like that to put out there as visual content. I don't know why you'd want to actually look at us. I mean, me, I understand. You...
Facial expressions, and, you know, it adds to the humor. What are you talking about? Fuck yourself.
Yeah, I do have a good picture of you being really, really, really bored last week. I should post that.
I wasn't bored. I was searching Google for news, okay?
I don't know if I believe
I'm getting berated by you, too.
But yeah, like the Google Hangouts, I got a good idea with doing like a live show at some point, because with Google Hangouts, you can invite like up to I think 12 people to participate. So that would be a cool like live Q&A when there is enough people that will actually participate in something like that. And I'm totally down for that. Like just boom, on the spot, ask me any question. You know, who do I think is better, fucking Batman or Zorro? That's a really bad comparison, but
That's it. Way to turn the people off, Cuba.
Nobody's gonna pick Zorro unless you're Mexican, I guess.
So you pick Zorro?
I'm not Mexican.
Did you see that Cholo, that video I sent you, Cholo exercises?
No, I don't think so.
Oh my god, Cuba. It was in the chat. Fucking go to the chat.
I was busy today. God damn it. Every goddamn Saturday, I seem to be going somewhere where I spend half the goddamn day in someone's apartment chasing my fucking baby around. It's like, are these my Saturdays now?
Yep. Your Saturdays for the foreseeable future till they can pick up a Nintendo controller or some kind of remote for a video game system, and then you just put them in front of the TV and let them do their thing.
No, that was the other one. During the school week, I cannot for the life of me get her to wake up at fucking 7 o'clock. I'm like, it's 7 o'clock. We have an hour to get ready, you know, get dressed, breakfast, get going, ready for school, and head on the road. She's like, I want to wake up. I'm tired. 7:15. I'm like, if you don't fucking get up, I'm going to throw you outside in your goddamn underwear. And that gets her moving generally. This morning, she wakes up at fucking 6 in the morning and goes downstairs and plays Lego Jurassic Park until I get out of bed at fucking 9:30. And I'm like, all right, turn off this fucking video game. You've been playing it for 3 hours.
It's a motivator, man.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like, why can't you do that during school?
Because school is a terrible soul-sucking goddamn thing. All right?
I guess.
Video games are life-giving.
So anyways, the moral of this story is, if you want to start a podcast, listen to us.
Fucking do it. Okay.
Honestly, that is actually the best advice that they did not give. Is just fucking do it.
You will learn in the school of hard knocks. Okay, what we can tell you. Well, you got to pay for a seminar. Okay? No, as far as like how we started, I mean, we did 3 episodes because we have our crazy friend Allie who just comes up with the randomest conversations. We're like, we need to get you on the fucking podcast, or like we need to record your shit because the shit you say is ridiculous.
Yeah, and the first episode recorded terribly.
Yep.
The second episode also recorded terribly.
Yep.
And then the third episode, we're like, we can't put what you just said online. It's like, this is no.
Yeah, and we had some, we tried to segment it out into like, okay, well, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk, and like very show oriented. If you're going into this right off the bat, like, I want to make a show and I want it to be like basically what you would see on TV, where it's like, okay, this section is now this talking about this section is now talking about this, and this section is now talking about this, and being like very structural. We have a time limit, like we only talk about this for this long. You can do that, but this is the internet. You don't need to do that. It's the fucking TV. I mean, that's old TV time. Okay, that's the past. This is freeform internet expansion.
I'll say structure works for some. Find what works for you. This, we have a slight bit of structure. I mean, I definitely steer this ship in a certain direction. But some podcasts are heavily edited, like a lot of post-production. I enjoy the post-production, but I don't have time to do 3 hours of post-production.
Yeah, it's also like a good point. Like, do what you have time for, because I remember when we did the first iteration, we were new, so our conversations had a lot of ums. It had a lot of fuckings in there too.
Oh, I mean, they still do.
Because in New England, instead of or in between all the words, or the word like
there's a lot of fucks and fucking and that fucking.
Yeah,
fuck.
So we had to edit out a lot of that, and then we learned like, oh shit, I should probably change my speech, especially when I go into job interviews.
Oh no, job interview, that's a different switch.
So
I have straight talking. I have straight talking mode, and then I have professional mode when if I'm at work and I was like, pick up the phone. Hello, thanks for calling, whatever, and never.
Yeah, it's.
And I don't pick up the phone going,
unconscious.
What do you want, you motherfucker?
There was one point where and I remember having to edit this because it was, and I sent you the clip of it because it was 30 seconds of you just going fucking, and you said like 35 fuckings in 3 sentences, and I was like, Jesus, Cuba, this is the most ridiculous shit I have ever seen or edited. I mean, so that was necessary. This point, we're like 4 years in, so we're hardened to the ways of the podcast. We kind of know how to steer it in a direction. We know how to not say and like and fucking. So
to an extent,
when you become a master, as we have, you don't need to do the editing. You can have an engaging conversation. You can interview people and have engaging conversations with questions that you want answered. Which we haven't done quite yet, but I'm sure if we come across someone interesting enough to have on this thing, we can interview the fuck out of them.
Oh no, I mean, I do. I have at least one person owner of a business that I definitely want to reach out to. It's just we're not ready for it yet. It's as soon as we're ready for it, I'm going to reach out to this person and
that was another thing
try to
where
get something going.
There was another thing on this talk that we went to where one guy. He did his podcast in seasons. He made like 10 episodes per season, and then he would try to find sponsors to sponsor those 10 episodes for like $1,000 an episode. And that's all well and good when it's a business podcast where people want to hear what you have to say about whatever particular program, or it's almost like almost like those instructional DVDs that you find at fucking the library and shit. So like that's a feasible thing. But when you're working with like just conversation, do people want to hear what we have to say? You have to throw shit at a wall. Like if you have shit that you like, that you're like, hey, I invested money in this, reach out to them, find a contact email, send them an email in the dark and be like, I want to review your stuff. You get content for your podcast. And sometimes like you may get a stroke of luck where someone can actually reach out via Skype or whatever, and you have to research what you have to do for a fucking Skype interview for a podcast, and get more content for your shit, ask more specific questions about the thing that you like, and boom, this worked out for us where, like, I was hearing about all this vaping stuff. I heard a podcast about it that got me interested. I reached out to that company that they interviewed, and they sent me stuff to review and came on the podcast, and we interviewed them. It happened like a few times with things that we reached out to, and sometimes they sent us like extra product that we then later sold for better equipment for our podcast. It was all very cyclical, and you kind of have to be optimistic about it, I guess you could say.
And it's also a good way to pick up chicks.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first things I said to my wife on the night that I met her. I'm like, I do a podcast.
You're in radio? Oh, how dreamy.
Like, it's about geek shit. It's
Not to
funny
stroke
too
my
because
own ego, but I'm pretty big
Yeah.
in the geek stratosphere.
oh yeah, we talked about Star Trek for like a good hour and a half that very first night of our meeting, and then if you ask her about it, she doesn't remember because she was too drunk. And I'm like, well, apparently I'm the only one with the romantic memories of that night.
I think.
And speaking of others, significant others, I wanted to get yours on here tonight because I want to talk about Doctor Who, because I finally went over that hump that I couldn't get over of the hump of the 10th Doctor to the 11th Doctor, and I really want to talk about it. But I want to talk about it.
You can talk to me.
No, I don't want to talk
it.
about it with you because you're like a latecomer. You're like a latecomer to Who. She's an original.
No, she's not. I got her into Who.
You got what?
Yeah, I started.
I thought she was the one who got you into it.
No, I started dating. You got me into Who because you were talking about the 10th Doctor. I was like, fuck, I'll watch. So I put it on the background when I was drawing and shit. And by the time I started dating her, she came into it when I was on the 11th Doctor.
So
And
how's her kid into it so much? Like
Me.
She's like a Joe. My God, she's got no right to give me shit like she was giving last week. No.
So listen.
No.
So
No.
she came into it when I was on the 11th Doctor, and we kind of I was watching it when I would go over her apartment when we started dating, and I'm like, oh, can I watch this? Like it's I want to watch this episode. So she would watch. So she watched like a few episodes, and she goes, "Oh, this show's really cool. I want to watch this." And I was like, "I can't possibly explain to you all of the intricacies of this show because it's been going on for how many fucking seasons at this point." So from that point, like it was mid 11th Doctor, we went back. We jumped back to the 9th Doctor, and I started over with her, and we watched all that. We got to the 10th Doctor, she loved him, and we got to the 11th Doctor, and that intro for the 11th Doctor is the most jarring thing for anyone who's into Doctor Who because it goes from the like the this is the Doctor's show to all of a sudden this intro with this girl named Amy Pond, and she's like, I'm Amy Pond and this is my story about the Doctor. It's like, no, it's not about your fucking story. Fuck you. But this is the Doctor's show. So there was a big nerd rant that, like, I even have that on my Facebook memories where it was like, "Aw, I'm so proud. My baby had her first nerd rant about the Amy Pond fucking intro and how ridiculous it was." So we're like, "Oh, we're gonna watch this and we're gonna hate it." And that whole season was just like dark and cool, and we're like, "Oh fuck!" Like the storylines for this are very compelling, great, and. Then we got to so we've been with it for a very long time. No.
You just disqualified yourselves. I thought she was like deep into it and then got you into it. No, forget it. I'm gonna get my friend. No. I'm gonna get my friend who I had here last week. We were talking about Doctor Who. This motherfucker's deep. He deep in the Doctor. He's talking about show producers and writers and producers, and he's like, oh, 11th Doctor, I get why people don't like him and stuff. He's like, 12th Doctor, I actually like him. He's a good Doctor. He goes, but no, my favorite Doctor, he's the 4th Doctor. When you go back to those old ones, he was like, they're like the best science fiction. I'm like, dude, you're fucking deep.
Well, I started watching those because I'm so deep. Because, like, when you get to the 12th Doctor, you're like, okay, Matt Smith's gone. Okay? Now, Moffat is the guy that wrote a lot of the great episodes, like Weeping Angels. Like, he wrote some of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who. Some of the darkest shit. And you're like, yes, like, this guy is now running the fucking 12th Doctor. It's an old guy, so we possibly could get this, like, crazy old guy Doc Brown kind of doctor, and we're gonna get these
everybody.
Yeah, well, not even that. Like, Marty, we're gonna go back to the future, like shit like that. And I was pumped. I was like, yes, because maybe this will prove that the fucking Doc Brown was an actual Time Lord, like some kind of weird geek, friggin' conspiracy
alternate
theory.
headcanon.
Exactly. So we get this Doctor, and I'm like, yes, like he's gonna have a dark plot, because the thing about the 11th Doctor, his plot, like, he's not as good as the 10th Doctor acting wise or like likability wise, but he's still a great Doctor. And his stories, every season, they did a great thing where it was an overarching plot. So you had the X-Files type episodes where they were just like unrelated to the particular plot, but overall there was something that added to the major plot of the season. And that's what was great about the 11th Doctor. And they were dark, gritty stories where like people died and shit. You're like, fuck! But it evolved with the adult audience. And then the 12th Doctor came along. Moffat's at the helm as the showrunner, and every episode is the stupid episode of X-Files. It's like this, that's like the random shit. It's almost childish in nature, and you're like, what the fuck? And the first season of this 12th Doctor, he's a grump. He's a fucking asshole. And he also played the dad in the
Rome episode.
The Rome episode. Not Rome, it was Pompeii.
Pompeii, yeah.
So you're like, how the fuck are they going to explain that? Was he a doctor at the time? Like, that was what I want to know. Like, okay, this is going to be interesting because that actor played this character. Maybe it'll tie in and it'll be intelligent and adultish in their way of telling that story. And so let down. This doctor was a fucking grumpy butt. He looked at everything so cynically, like an old man. And the season concluded, and nothing was gained from this season. There was a fucking like a T-Rex in London that could talk to people. It was dumb. It was the whole season was just dumb. Okay, it started to delve more into like what you wanted to see is, and a little bit of spoilers, but not much. The Impossible Girl, and you wanted to see where it goes. I'm not going to spoil it for you, just for your benefit, because it's an intriguing story. But you could have did it better, right? And it just should have had more significance in my mind than it eventually culminated. I'm just like, fucking 12th Doctor. I'm so angry at him. So the second season with the 12th Doctor, I think they took a lot, because there was a lot of hate for this season, for that season of the Doctor. Everyone's like, what the fuck is this guy? And then you have like, well, it'll get it better, guys, come on. Like,
that's what you've been telling me about the 11th Doctor.
And fuck you love it. Don't say that you don't.
No. I'll let you talk, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. So
the second season of this 12th Doctor, they took into consideration what the fans had been saying, that they wanted a lighter Doctor, yada yada. Unfortunately, the stories just remained so frickin' juvenile and random, and there was no real stakes involved in the storytelling. You could barely tell what the Scottish guy was saying, and that the Scottish Doctor, you could definitely tell he was a fan of the old Doctors, because he plays, it's almost like a Doctor out of time to that degree where you're like, you shouldn't be in this show because you're so jarring in your performance. It's so stoic and terrible that it shouldn't be in this show interacting with these characters. You're not whimsical enough to pull this off, and you haven't explained why you're in Pompeii. What the fuck is wrong with you? And like the story that they did give for him eventually, why the whole Pompeii thing happened, is bullshit. It leads you nowhere, and you're just like, that was dumb. Fuck you. And
period.
It's just fuck you at this point. I want him to die. I want a new Doctor. And like, even
from what I've heard is he's got one more season and that's it.
I don't even want one more season. Season 2 opened up. So the Doctor is supposed to be a pacifist. Every iteration in the episodes where someone says, I'm going to fire a gun to kill a thing, he's always intervened with some other solution to not kill a thing, right? Mm-hmm. He was always about no weapons. We do this with my fucking screwdriver. That's why I have a screwdriver, because I'm a pacifist, essentially. I'll fuck you up if I need to, but for now we're trying to fix things with the screwdriver. Okay. And season 2 of the 12th Doctor opened with him playing a fucking heavy metal guitar, riding a tank into like a village barn with Bob Dylan sunglasses on, and they traded the screwdriver for Sonic sunglasses. Fuck you. Fuck you. So, it doesn't get better, Cuba. I'm sorry. That other guy, he's just wrong. Awful.
No.
That
Bad
episode
doctor.
right there takes you completely, like, you're not the doctor. You are not the doctor by this fucking caveat alone. This scene puts you out of doctorhood. You're done. You're fucking... You're goddamn parking meter man. I don't care who. You're ridiculous.
Strip you of your PhDs.
And they tried to keep going with this like weird Bob Dylan-y thing that he has, and it just doesn't work. This new Christmas episode.
Well, Christmas episodes are always terrible.
Always stupid, but this one was even dumber. And like I said, there's no stakes. It was just they threw him into a thing that maybe they thought was popular, and they advertised it a lot. And they're advertising this new companion that looks like Black Rose, essentially.
Black,
Rose,
like Rose Taylor?
Yeah, she looks exactly like Rose Taylor, just black. It's very strange.
That's kind of hot.
So, I'm like, okay, and like same face. It's so weird. It's so weird. But I want the Doctor to die. And after watching Fantastic Beasts and seeing the way that actor guy, I forget his name.
I don't know his name, but dude, I can never look at that guy and not think of that terrible fucking Jupiter Ascending movie.
Well, see,
that movie was shit on a magic CG sci-fi platter.
But he's a good actor in it.
He is. He's a great terrible androgynous villain whose point I don't quite understand because the world doesn't make any sense in that movie.
Anyway, he would make a great Doctor. Like, he's just really awkward and likable. So it's very, like, even just, like, the subtle looks, you can tell there's, like, pain behind his eyes. And that's what the Doctor needs, is pain behind his eyes. This guy is just a grump. A fucking Scrooge McDuck. I can't get behind him. And
so I love the 10th Doctor, and I think that's kind of universal. I think everybody agrees that David Tennant was a great fucking Doctor, and
it would not
so
be where it is today without the Tennant.
definitely for sure. And so it took me. I watched the whole season with the 9th Doctor when it first came out, and it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and then and then he turned, and then the next season it was David Tennant with the 10th Doctor, and I only watched less than half of that season because then it like disappeared. I guess it went to like BBC America, and I didn't have that channel, so I went years without seeing Doctor Who. I was aware of it. I knew of its history, but I'm not deep into the Doctor. I'm not a Whovian by any stretch of the imagination. But I liked what I had saw. I like science fiction. Science fiction is like my favorite genre. So I mean, good, bad. In my book, there is no bad science fiction. I mean, there is bad science fiction, but not bad. It's hard to find science fiction that's bad enough for me not to watch it. So I started after my kid was born. My latest kid was born this past year. At the beginning of 2016, I started watching Doctor Who, picking up where I left off at the beginning of the 10th Doctor. And it was on Netflix. And then within like 2 days of me watching it, it was removed from Netflix. I'm like, motherfucker. So I found it on Prime. I picked it up like maybe a month or two later on Prime, and I went through almost all of the Doctor.
Did you get to see the episode where he transformed?
No, I did find. I found that it's on Amazon. I just it's under like, it's not an episode. It's a special. So it was separate. It's like in a different category, but it's on there, and I need to see it because it didn't make sense from how the season ended to the new Doctor. I'm missing something massive here because it's just like it goes from him. Yeah, the last episode that Amazon has with the 10th Doctor is when he meets the guy who plays the governor on The Walking Dead, who thinks he's the Doctor, but he's not the Doctor. And then it picks up with the 11th Doctor. The TARDIS is flying through the sky on fire, and he's already the new Doctor, and he's hanging out of the TARDIS. I'm like, what the fuck happened? I'm like, did the governor do this? That bastard. So
he ruined 2 shows.
He did, that son of a bitch. So, but before I got to the end of David Tennant's run as the 10th Doctor, I must have went 2 months. I got down to the final, like, 4 episodes, and I went, I don't want to. I love him as the Doctor so much. I knew what Matt Smith looked like. I remember when he was announced as the Doctor, I'm like, he's got no eyebrows. No eyebrows. And he's wearing a fez. He's creepy looking. I don't like it. Just, I know we tell our kids, hey, yo, don't judge people based on what they look.
But you hate gingers.
Yeah, I didn't like how this dude looked. I'm like, I can't get behind this Doctor. I'm sorry. Just David Tennant was just so charming, and he was a great Doctor. And then this guy looks like a fucking pedophile. And then his first episode, they pair him with a child. I'm like, this is unfortunate. That's just so wrong. So now I got over the hump. I'm actually at the very beginning of the 2nd season with the 11th Doctor, and yeah, you're right. The storyline is dark. It's more mature. It's more of a story arc throughout the entire season, and I like it, but I don't like it. It's like, okay, I get it. It's definitely more adult, but I liked the more random episodes of previous seasons of Tennant's run. It's just like, I liked the idea of the Doctor just jumping around all over the place and just falling into these fucking situations where I get the feeling with this one, with the 11th Doctor, I know they have this story arc that they're trying to tell, and they're doing a good job story-wise, but it doesn't feel like it fits within the Doctor Who franchise. It's like, I don't know, it's like, it's too dark and too adult, because my daughter watched a few episodes of the 10th Doctor with me, and she was fine with it. Every episode that she's watched with the 11th Doctor, she's woke up with fucking nightmares. She saw the episode with the silence last night for the first time, and she woke up at like 3 in the morning, and she's like, like shaking. And she's like, those things, those aliens, I can't get them out of my head. I'm like, all right, well, pretend, they're just people in a costume. They're making a TV show. They're telling a story. Pretend it's Star Wars, and they're chasing after you, shooting blasters, but you have a lightsaber, and you deflect their blasters back at them. You get in the Millennium Falcon, and you go and get some ice cream. And that put her to bed. But it's like, it is dark shit, and it feels so out of place. Like, it feels like they got together, and they're like, all right, we gotta, let's grow up. Let's make the Doctor more appealing to adults. And I get that, but like I said, it doesn't fit with Doctor Who. It feels like what they tried to do with Star Trek Enterprise, how, like, there were random episodes, but there was this overarching storyline, which works with most modern television shows, but with shows like Doctor Who and Star Trek, I feel they're at their best when they're just random, where it's just a complete random science fiction adventure, and then if you can make it tie in together, that's great.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm complaining, but not complaining about it. Other than the fact that the guy does look like a fucking diddler.
Then you may appreciate the 12th Doctor more, but I don't know. I definitely, the 11th Doctor has his merits, for sure.
Yeah. I love River. I love River's song. I think she's the best character introduced in the show. She's hot to boot, so that's cool. But it's like, I don't like Amy. I find her annoying, but not as annoying as what's her face? The previous one who he had to like wipe her mind.
Oh yeah.
The other redhead girl. And I like her boyfriend, or her husband rather now. Like. Yep. Like I like him.
It's really funny because the boyfriend now plays on Legend. What's that show on the WB or the CW? Legends of Tomorrow or whatever, where it's all like the DC stupid heroes. He's basically the Doctor in that show. He like comes in and he's like got in control of time, and he sends
he's got
people
a good resume
time.
with that.
So it's really strange. Like Rory, you should just be called Rory.
Yeah, so like 50% of the cast I'm good with. The other 50, like the two main characters, I don't like. I don't like that it's Amy's story. It takes away from the Doctor. We're watching the Doctor's story. It's the adventures of the Doctor. And then the Doctor I don't like because it's like he's a pedophile doing a bad impression of the 10th Doctor. And like you keep saying he's going to come in on his own, but I'm like, all right, I'm in season 2 already. He's still doing things the way that I would see David Tennant acting as the Doctor, where the theory is when the Doctor regenerates, not only does he get a new body, his personality changes. He remains the same person at his core, but he just gets new different quirks. I'm not seeing those yet. I'm still seeing the 10th Doctor, but with a different, creepier face.
I don't know, maybe the second season they'll change your mind about it.
Maybe. I don't know. But we got to end this podcast here tonight. Thank you guys for listening. If, in all seriousness, if anybody out there who listens to this, if you want to start your own podcast, we hope that you actually took something away from this. And the best advice that I think we can both give you is just do it. Just seriously, just do it, because that's the first step in doing anything that you want to do, that you have a passion for, is just doing it. If you want to get like more specifics, like hardware and software, you can shoot us a message and we'll answer you for a fee. No, I'm kidding. No. We'll. I'm not worried about competition. There are 5,000 fucking geeky nerdy podcasts out there, and I'm figuring what sets us apart is the personalities on this show. That's the best that we have to offer, is ourselves, our thoughts, our opinions. So if you want to do something
you,
like
but
this,
I'm pretty cool.
you want to do something like this, if you've been thinking about it, go ahead and do it. If you have questions, we'll answer it, no problem. And also, if anybody out there is a Whovian or a passing Doctor Who fan, join this conversation. This is I want this. This is going to be an ongoing conversation as I progress through my Doctor Who, and maybe once I'm caught up, I'll go back and I don't even have no idea if the old original series is on Amazon, but I'll find it and I might check it out. But
I think that version of the Doctor, like the old ones, are still on Netflix, but I haven't checked.
Yeah, like the British Netflix, I think, but not the American one.
Oh, not the American
one. Either way, what do you think? Who's your favorite Doctor? Am I wrong about the 11th Doctor, or is he wrong about the 11th Doctor? What do you think about the darker stories of Doctor Who?
And tell us
I want to know what you think.
Tell us what you hate about the 12th Doctor.
Or if you love the 12th Doctor. I'm gonna try to arrange my friend to
no,
to
if
come
you
on
love
here.
the 12th Doctor, you're wrong.
I'll try to get my friend to come on here and he's already expressed interest in podcasting, because he's had some podcasting experience in the past, so I'm sure he'll be happy to come on here and school us all completely on Doctor Who. In the meantime, you can send any email at us at modernretro@gmail.com. Our website is the hub of all things Modern Retro, where you see the latest
Wait, it's
news.
not modernretrocast@gmail.com?
modernretrocast@gmail.com.
Giving away the wrong goddamn email, you piece of shit.
I know, I'm doing a Roy. It's like, Roy, where are we at? Modern Retro Podcomcast? modernretrocast.com is the website. From there, you can stream episodes, hear the latest episode, hear our archived episodes. There is episode show notes, and from there you can find links to our Stitcher and our iTunes, where you can subscribe, and we really suggest you subscribe to us and rate us and leave feedback. And anything else you have anything to throw in there?
I am coming up to week 2 of my unboxing spectacular. I basically sat down in my living room and I got like so many boxes piled up, and I just haven't unboxed them. So the first episode's already up. You can go to iTunes and check that out. It's the December Sci-Fi Nerd Block with a special guest, my kitten, because she just decided to jump up and just sit there the entire fucking episode.
That's what happens when you feed your cat LSD.
The second episode, I believe, is the Marvel Corpse, Marvel Core box, which Loot Crate Funko had sent me as a thank you for being a part of their Star Wars Smugglers box. So I just got a random box in the mail, which sent me on a fucking hour-long manhunt in my emails to figure out what the hell was happening with that. It was free, so that was good. So that's coming out on Wednesday, I believe. Then we have a Stan Lee box. And if you don't know my standings on Stan Lee, you can head to episode 16 and check that out. And then the final one, which is a short one, is Smuggler's Bounty this month, which was really cool. They had an exclusive thing in there that was sweet. And stay tuned after I'll call it the credit scene for the stinger, because there's a fucking funny stinger with the other cat in the third
zombie one.
Yep, the Stan Lee episode. It was just the noise that she made.
Man.
So yeah, that's going to be rolling out over the next 4 weeks. So subscribe.
And again, our
YouTube
is on Modern Retro Cast /YouTube. Whatever that. Just go on YouTube and look for Modern Retro Podcast.
Yep.
And again, it's also on our website. So you go to modernretrocast.com. There is a link to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and our RSS feed.
But wait,
all right, guys.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
You can also, because these are up now, you can also head over to our TeePublic site for T-shirts based on the conversations that we have talked about in previous episodes. We have our Modern Retro Cast emblem, which is, if you want to support the podcast, that's the way to do it. The other two T-shirts are It's an Elaborate Ruse with Admiral Raddus from Rogue One, and then we have Trump Troopers T-shirt there, so you can make fun of the president in your own way, the way God intended. But there's a sale going on for the next... Oh, wait, that's going to end in 3 hours. Never mind, there's no sale going on.
Get on it! Oh, wait, this won't come out till Monday.
Yep. It fluctuates between $20 and $14, depending on how much you want to support us. Either way, if you buy it at when it's at $14, or if you buy it when it's at $20, $2 will go to us to help support the podcast.
And we will have a Patreon coming within the next 2 months. I want to get that up and going. It's just a matter of getting this crew together away from video games long enough to actually work. So I think when we actually have our monthly meeting, it's got to be at a restaurant where
March is going to be tough, man. Okay, end of March, Mass Effect's coming up, so I might not be able to do the podcast for a while.
So it's Mass Effect and Logan. Those are the two things I'm waiting for in March.
Yep.
It'll be exciting. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and till next time.
Later.
Exterminate. 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 I'm gonna stop these Daleks. Screwdriver in my pocket. I cruise time and space in a TARDIS. This is fucking awesome. Crash into your life like, what up? I got a blue box. Grab your hand, say run, better follow until I say stop. Trust me, I'm the doctor, got a lot of stuff to show you. People stare like they're confused and all they ask is, Doctor who? When I go to war, all you demons run and hide. Police box blue and yo, it's bigger on the inside. Sport a tweed jacket with a burgundy bow tie. Benzos are cool too, a style that is timeless. But shit, Amy Pond wanna diss.